Jedi's hunt for May continues in Day, the 4th episode of The ACOLYTE. After the flashback episode last week, The ACOLYTE moves its main storyline forward as May and Quimir arrive on Kovar to find Kalnaka and kill him. Only May begins having doubts about her mission, especially now that she has seen that her sister is very much alive. We saw a bit of Kalnaka in the end of episode 2, and we get a little bit more at the beginning of this episode, getting to see his exile on Kovar and how he's just kind of living like a hermit like most Jedis who go into exile do. What's interesting is his home is covered in paintings and scratchings of the symbol that both May and Osha have on the sides of their heads. It's not really explained why that exactly is, but it definitely has to do with the flashbacks we've been getting, and I'm sure the next flashback we get in a couple of episodes time will be from the Jedi's POV of what happened in the witch's village and how Kalnaka attacked Torben and why. I'm sure we'll also get revealed exactly what the deal is with the twins, like why they were exactly created, and I'm sure this symbol has something very big to do with that. Back on Coruscant, Osha is getting ready to leave the Jedi Temple, but not before stopping by and seeing Jeki for one last time. I really like how they have bonded over the last couple of episodes, with them sort of becoming friends. And really it's all thanks to Osha being Sol's former apprentice and Jeki being his current apprentice. This is a quite refreshing change of pace here, since a lot of times in both canon and legends, if you have two characters who were the apprentices of the same master and they meet, there's often a sort of friction or a rivalry that forms. You know, one was better than the other or something, you know, both vying for the master's affection and admiration. And my mind is immediately drawn to the little known legends character called Xanatos, who was Qui-Gon Jinn's apprentice before Obi-Wan, and the rivalry that he had with Obi-Wan. I chalk Osha and Jeki kind of getting along with each other just because they are both good-natured people, but also because they had Sol as their teacher, who is, for all intensive purposes so far, been kind of a wholesome, nice guy, and that's kind of rubbed off on his apprentices as well. The Jedi continue to try and solve what exactly is going on, and Venestra learns of May being alive, and is the one who recognizes that the Jedi she is killing were all the Jedi who were at May's village when it burned down, and that includes Sol as well. I still get the feeling that Sol is hiding something, and like I've said before, I think the Jedi did something shady in that village and covered it up, and now with other Jedi investigating that's put them under a microscope, and they are trying to sort of ward them off that path without having to reveal what happened in the village. One of the Jedi made aware of what's going on is Ki-Adi-Mundi, who in about 100 years will be sitting on the Jedi High Council in the prequel movies. It's a neat little cameo, but also does a great job showing how blind the Jedi are, since he's still waving away the thought of other Force user splinter groups, or as another Jedi puts it, something much worse being out there. There's even the political angle still being played here, as for the High Council to be made aware of what's going on, they would also need to tell the Senate what's going on. And the Jedi don't want to do that, since they would lose standing in the Senate and don't want to lose the role of the galaxy's premier Force using order. There are so many cool little moments like that when they compound together, they really show that the Jedi are on a blinded path even 100 years before the Phantom Menace. Sol and his team of Jedi, meanwhile, are sent off to Kovar to locate Kalnaka before May can, and Osha is asked to tag along as well. The show finally gets around to introducing its kind of lovable, furry little character that most of these Star Wars shows have, and this show has Basil, a little tracker that the Jedi have employed who will lead them to Kalnaka once they arrive on Kovar. Basil isn't in the episode all that much besides his initial introduction where he kind of pisses off Pip a little bit too much and Pip sprays him in the face with some water, which was a little bit fun. I like it when they do stuff like that with droids. But apart from that, he's not really in the episode all that much. He does lead them to Kalnaka, but we barely see him on screen. And I have to wonder if it was maybe like a budget thing, because he was, I believe for most of the time, a CG character. I believe there was a person in a suit somewhere in there, but I think most of the time it was CG, so I could see why they wouldn't want him on screen all that much, since it could probably get pretty expensive. I quite enjoy that we didn't actually skip the Jedi's journey through Kovar, and we get to see some cool Kofarian life, like giant bugs that are attracted to lightsaber light. And more importantly, we get a little bit more character development with some of these other Jedi, like Yord, who still very much is a little bit on the sketchy side to me. He's very unhappy that Osha has come with them, so much so that he's sticking to her like glue, like he couldn't get any closer if he tried. I know he's not obviously going to be the Sith, but there is definitely something up with him, and like I said in my review of episode 1 and 2, he feels like one of those cops who would intentionally kill, a woman's little dog and then try and justify it as a rabid animal. He was really itchy to use his lightsaber and to kind of prove his worth, and I think that might end up being his undoing. Mei and Quimi's journey through the jungle as well is interesting, as Mei constantly questions Quimir and how he knows where Kalnaka is, how he was able to brave these jungles when famed bounty hunters wouldn't, and you can kind of see that she's kind of probing and testing to see if maybe he's the master or he's, a Sith as well. And there's definite hints that he is, and I obviously think he is because he very much fits that Sith character where they have that sort of dual secret identity, with Quimir being his, public out-faced identity where he's a little bit bumbling and he kind of has that mild-mannered thing going for him. Very much like how the Emperor had Palpatine the Senator as his out-facing identity and was completely different as Darth Sidious. But in saying that, he feels like he's the red herring. He's the one we're meant to suspect as the Sith, but it's revealed he's not. But also, on top of that, I would think the writers would have thought about that and would have thought that we would have immediately picked up on it, which I think a lot of people have. And maybe he is the Sith and it's sort of like a double red herring where he is suspected to be the Sith, he is the Sith, but we don't know that, or we weren't meant to know that. Mei eventually does betray Quimir and ends up tying him up with a trap, deciding to go off and find her sister now that she knows she lives. She plans on giving herself up to Kalnaka so she will be taken to the Jedi Order and to Osha. I was quite surprised that Mei kind of did a 180 on her training as a dark side user, all because her sister is alive, and obviously there is hints at that, like they are to be reunited together because they are, two halves of one whole. I still think they are very much a dyad, so there is like the Force or the thread as their witches called it, are like drawing them together. So I can feel why she would want to betray the Sith, especially because the entire reason she joined the Sith was because she thought everyone she knew was dead. Kind of changes the dynamic of the show a little bit, since now we could see her kind of joining her sister on the light side of the Force, or at least, helping Osha and to an extent the Jedi against the Sith in the coming episodes. It's really quite an interesting turn of events, and I didn't really see that happening. I thought it was definitely just going to be one sister is good and one sister is bad. Mei eventually finds Kalnaka's abode and the Wookiee Jedi within, only he has been killed, and killed with a lightsaber at that. This was kind of a cool twist, though I do feel a little bit sad we didn't get to see present day Kalnaka get some action scenes. It feels a little bit disappointing. I can understand maybe why you wouldn't want to do that, because it is, again, a guy in a suit, it's a very big suit as well, might be hard to move in. I do know we are getting some Kalnaka stuff in some later episodes, since we've seen scenes in TV spots where he is using his lightsaber against Torben, but I kind of feel like we should have at least gotten something that showed him putting up a fight, because the way he's killed makes it look like he didn't put up, makes it look like he was killed in his sleep, more or less, which I guess is kind of fitting for a Sith to be very cowardly about how they kill their target. But it also goes against what was wanted of Mei, where she had to kill these Jedi without a weapon. So I guess we're kind of seeing, a little bit of the double standards of the Sith here, and this could also have been a way to kind of teach her a lesson, since she went against Quimir and trapped him, and maybe this is Quimir as the Sith saying, well, you don't get to finish your training now, I'm just going to kill you. And him killing Kalnaka prevents her from fulfilling her trials. The Jedi do soon turn up to the abode and corner Mei in the hut, but then the Sith also arrives, descending from the tops of the trees silently behind Osha like Dracula, which is a really awesome way to introduce your big villain of the show. No music or anything, he's done in blur because we're not focused on him, so he's just in this blurry background, descending very silently, and then moving across the ground like he has no footsteps. Really big, Christopher Lee Dracula vibes, which is really cool. And then with a single motion of his hand, he takes out all of the Jedi with a force push. I am pretty disappointed we didn't get to see the fight since that's where the episode ends, but also I understand this is how weekly TV works. That was a cliffhanger ending. I'm going to come back next week to see all of the action happen, and I imagine we will. I imagine next week's episode is going to be full of action since we're at the halfway point now. However, after 2 episodes which were filled with real deep character focused stuff, which I really enjoyed as well, I would have liked a splash of action thrown in there here and there, and it would have been very welcome, I think. So while we don't get to see the Sith all that much, we do get to see little tidbits of his costume and what he looks like near the episode's end, and mostly we just get to see his arms and his saber, which might not seem like quite a lot, but to me, I had so many things that kind of stood out to me. First, we get to see that he has a darker skin, much like Queemere does, but also he seems, at least by the looks of it, to have a bare chest, or at least not have sleeves on his costume, and he also has a gauntlet on his left arm. Immediately that design screams to me Ren, the leader of the Knights of Ren before Ben Solo took over. He looks exactly like this guy apart from the helmet. And I'm not saying that it's that same character, I'm saying that because Ren is a title earned by someone who kills the previous Ren, this could be the Ren we see in Crimson Reign and other Charles Soule's writing in comics and books could have killed. I think that would be quite an interesting pull, especially because it's something probably not a lot of people know about. Like, the sequel trilogy really wasted the Knights of Ren, and I think that falls completely on J.J. Abrams with his mystery box bullshit, but in supplemental material from Charles Soule, he's really made them into their own characters, and I think that if this turns out to be that, I'm not saying it is, it's probably not going to be the Ren character, but if it does, this is a good way to introduce people to that and have ties to the comics and to the sequel trilogy as well. Apart from being disappointed we didn't get some proper action, episode 4 of The Acolyte did some more solid character development, especially between Osha and Jeki. I really enjoyed the little dynamic they have as both being apprentices to the same master and their shared experiences with that, as well as Jeki kind of also taking Osha under her wing a little bit throughout the episode. I enjoyed the continuing mystery of what really happened at the Witch Village and all the theories it's creating in my mind, but again, I would have loved a little bit of action to break up all of this drama. I'm going to give this episode an 8.5 out of 10.